you'll never understand the profound impact you had on my daughter. And I thought, okay, wow, this is important work. There's something really important here. And this is one of the moments that inspired me to dedicate a decade of my life to helping young people reach their full potential. Thanks everyone for being here. My name is JP Michel. I'm the founder at SparkPath. My kids are still young, 3.5 and 1.5, but I'm already looking forward to the big conversations about career and education. I can't help it. It's what I do. I studied industrial organizational psychology, which gave me a unique perspective on how careers evolve, what opportunities are out there, and how to prepare. And this is an exciting session for SparkPath specifically. For years, we've been focusing on supporting schools to help them transform their career exploration practices. But we get excellent questions from parents, and we want to answer them directly. And this is why we created this webinar. So we hope you will ask us your great questions today using the chat feature on Zoom. A lot of you have used Zoom before. You know, you can use that big, beautiful bubble at the bottom to send us your questions. So please do that. We encourage it. We hope the session will be interactive. A little bit about our company. Our career tools at SparkPath have been used by over 100 schools, colleges, and universities. This is all across North America, all the way to schools in Singapore and New Zealand. And we've helped over 40,000 students prepare for their future. And today, we're going to share what we've learned with you so that it can help you set up your teams for success. And let me start by sharing a story of one of the first parents that I helped. When she came to see me, this mother, her daughter was 16. And when it came to her future, she was lost. And the mom asked, like, can you help? I said yes. And I worked with her daughter to help her discover who she wanted to become, the impact she wanted to have on the world, and how she could get there. And at the end of the program, I'll never forget what her mother said to me. She said, "You'll never understand the profound impact you had on my daughter." And I thought, okay, wow, this is important work. There's something really important here. And this is one of the moments that inspired me to dedicate a decade of my life to helping young people reach their full potential. And when I think about parents, that is at the heart of what they want for their children. First, they want them to be happy. And second, they want them to reach their full potential. And for this to happen, parents have a very important role to play. Why? Because they're the biggest influence on students' careers. That's what the research tells us. And as parents, we know that with great power comes great responsibility. What's the role that parents should play in the process? Surely there are some things we should do, some things we should not do, and that's what we're going to cover today. This session is a great investment of your time, by the way, because as you may have gathered by recent headlines, this is a big topic we're talking about. You may have read that half of parents still financially support their adult children, and that this can happen when kids are in their 30s. And even though we invited parents specifically today, this is not a parenting workshop. Our focus is on the career, education, and job market factors that are contributing to these issues. If you are looking for an excellent resource on parenting, I recommend Dr. Shefali Tsabary, the author of The Conscious Parent. That's a great resource that's about parenting. For us, our focus is different. We're talking about careers and education. And with that focus, here's what you will get out of today's webinar. Number one, we're going to discuss unique obstacles for youth so that you've got a clear understanding of what they're up against. Second, we'll learn why matching students to one job title doesn't work. Third, we'll look at what to do instead, why building a challenge mindset instead of a job title mindset can help youth reach their potential. And fourth, finally, you'll get recommendations and resources that you can use with your teen tonight, tomorrow, this weekend, whenever you want. So let's start with the first point. Teenagers are facing obstacles. They're less independent and more anxious than they were in previous generations. We've asked them to focus on academics instead of getting part-time jobs. A lot of them are intimidated by the student debt that they might incur. And after they graduate, many are facing situations with unemployment and underemployment. Some of them are even looking at other people, adults in their lives, and they see that they're disengaged at work and they don't want to be disengaged at work. This is a heavy slide, right? And as a result of these factors, we meet a lot of students that feel discouraged and anxious when it comes to their future. And that's a shame because we don't see it that way. I believe that the world needs young people and that they've got exciting possibilities in front of them, but a lot of them don't see it. Why do they not see it? Well, these issues are compounded by the following factors. First, the world of work is changing. We all know that. There are tens of thousands of opportunities, many which didn't exist before. And it's continuing to change, right? At a very rapid pace. In fact, students today will likely change careers several times. And not only is it hard to know what's out there, it's also hard to find out the path to get there. Another factor compounding this is that there's a skills gap. This is what employers are complaining about. What this means is that there's a mismatch between the opportunities that are out there and the talent needed to fill them. Employers want students who are ready to contribute right away, and the education system is struggling to produce work-ready graduates. What's the consequence? Well, millions of unemployed and underemployed students, while there are millions of jobs unfilled. Now, young people on their end are complaining of a lack of help and resources to learn more about post-secondary options and careers. And we work with fantastic educators who are doing amazing work in this space, but not all students have access to these great educators. Those who don't, they're left to struggle on their own, and this can lead to discouragement and anxiety. So let's pause here because I'm curious. I want to find out, how are these factors affecting your teen? Can you take a moment to reflect? I suggest you write this down on a piece of paper or even share this with us on the chat, but I want to know, what is your teen, what's your teenager struggling with the most? I'll give you a moment to reflect, and those of you who feel comfortable sharing, please feel free to share in the chat. It's always useful to know what's on people's minds, what they're thinking about, and I'll get to read out some of the answers. Okay. Thanks for sharing. So I'm getting some public messages, private messages. I mean, one that we hear a lot is anxiety. So even if the process was simple, it's intimidating because students feel anxious and worried about the process instead of feeling excited. That's a big one that I see. I've got another comment here. There's too many choices. It's true. We get a lot of students that have too many choices on their plate. We also get the opposite. I have too few choices. So we see both. There's a myth out there that university or college is the best option, a 4-year college for all. Some students have been told, follow my passion. Well, when your passion is hockey and you don't necessarily want to play in the NHL, it's not that useful of a question for you. Making the right choice, motivation, not enjoying school, not interested in anything. I love the answers that I'm getting. I won't be able to catch up to everything that's here, but you've really identified some fantastic issues here. Okay, so you've shared what teens are struggling with. Let's move to solution mode. What do we do to help teens that are struggling? Well, here's what we've done traditionally. We've looked at the following resources. Obviously, schools help with career preparation. This is difficult today because the ratio of student to counselors is so large, 500 to 1, 1,000 to 1 in some cases. It makes it hard for those folks to spend time with students and give them the support that they need. What about counseling? Those who can afford mental health counseling, they benefit from the one-on-one time, and it helps with anxiety and pressure. But counselors are not necessarily trained in career exploration, and they might not know about the changing needs of the world of work. That's beyond the scope of their expertise. Many people turn to family. For example, a successful member of your family that's got a great career, your rich aunt or your rich uncle, right? The issue is that their success might not necessarily translate into other fields or picking a field. What you should look for instead is a career coach. And this successful person in your family might not have career coaching skills. So now that we've looked at these issues, let's give you a sample of how we help teens overcome these issues and transform their mindset so they get excited about their future. This is my favorite part, right? The excitement that comes with it. So if you were to ask your teen how many different job titles do they know about, what would they say? You know what I mean when I say job title, right? Police officer, electrician, doctor, lawyer, engineer. How many do they know? We typically on our end hear 10 all the way to maybe 50 job titles. And what about you on this call? You know more, double, triple, maybe 4 times that, right? Well, my next question for you is, how many different job titles are there in the world? It's a big number, right? Well, what is it? Is it 1,000, 5,000? In our research, we've seen that it's at least 20,000. So there's a huge gap between what students know and what's out there. And if we use the job title as the heart of the career exploration process, we're going to run into some problems. Why? Because students don't know what's out there. Those that they do know, that list of 10 to 50, they focus on prestigious jobs with high salary, maybe based on TV characters that they really like. We also know that job titles keep changing. Some don't even exist yet. And when I was working in industrial organizational psychology, I got to meet human resources departments, and they were struggling to write job descriptions and write job titles. Why? Well, again, things are moving so quickly. So what do we do differently? What we invite students to do is to let go of job titles for a moment and explore challenges, problems, and opportunities they can work on. For example, does your teenager want to invent new biotechnology or promote healthy living? What about you? Would you rather improve mental health or design the future of transportation? There are multiple exciting challenges that young people can work on. And if we start by showing them these challenges, you can see the excitement on their faces about the contribution they can make to the world. This is very different than how we've traditionally done careers. Traditionally, we've asked someone, hey, what's your favorite class? If you like math, then perhaps in university, you can study accounting and become an accountant, get hired by a company that hires accountants. And then eventually 5, 10 years in the job, you come to realize the challenge that you're working on. What is it? Maybe you help companies pay as little amount of tax as possible. And maybe you love that or not. Maybe you hate it. I don't know. It depends. It took you so long to get there, right? So what we're inviting students to do is to flip the model. Start by showing them exciting challenges first, and then work backwards to find which companies are working on that, who works there, what are their jobs, and what did they need to learn to be able to do that. And then all of a sudden, you can connect your day-to-day learning to the challenge you want to work on. I'm developing my communication skills in my English class because it's going to help me contribute to increasing sustainable energy. This is what we help students do. Over 40,000 students have chosen the challenges they want to work on so that they can flip the model. And our mission is big, by the way. We want to change the way that career exploration is done everywhere. And our work is starting to be recognized in academia. For example, in the following book that's available now for pre-order, We have a chapter on the challenge mindset, on how to empower students to find meaning and purpose. I also did a TEDx talk that's helping to spread the message of the challenge mindset. And in that talk, I talk about one particular student who I helped called Anna. Anna was like most students her age. She had no idea what she wanted to do. And my invitation for her was simple. Let's find a challenge that you want to work on. And we did it with the help of a magazine. I said, pick your favorite article. It was The Economist. And she picked an article about this special algae that was being used to clean polluted waterways. That's the green colored water that you see behind her in the background there. So then we looked, okay, well, who's making the algae? We found the company. Then we found who was working there. What had they learned to be able to do that? For most of them, they had studied materials science and engineering. Anna had never heard about this. I had never heard about this, and I was her career coach at the time, right? But we discovered it through the challenge mindset by flipping the model. And it turns out this was a great fit for what Anna wanted to do. Short term, this helped her pick her college major. Long term, now you've got a young person who's always looking for challenges to solve and what she needs to learn to be able to do that. And she learned a big lesson through this experience. She learned that if she doesn't choose the challenges she wants to work on, someone else will choose for you. And Anna went through a process to get here, right? She learned about herself. She learned to rethink her career, discover her potential. She explored the world of work. She then identified learning options. She built a plan. This is through a process, right? And Anna benefited from this because now she's prepared for what's coming next. The outcomes that students like Anna get from going through career exploration are that they, number one, feel empowered. You want someone to have the confidence to move forward and learn more. Second, you gain knowledge about yourself. And what do I mean by that? Yourself, well, your values, your strengths, your interests, your abilities, and opportunities in the outside world. And opportunities, I would describe that as challenges to solve. And last, Anna built a career and education roadmap with exciting options. And Anna's not an atypical story. She's not the only one to achieve these outcomes. When we work with students, this can be achieved in 1 to 2 months. And by the end of it, here's what we hear. The challenge mindset helped me learn that I have the power to be what I want in life. A lot of the students that we see, they feel like they have no power. So we want to go from not having power to having power. And this is a huge relief for parents who want their kids to be happy and to reach their full potential. They also know that they can't do it for them, right? Parents know that students need to own this process and make choices for themselves. So parents see the value in career exploration and doing it on purpose because it's such an important time in students' lives to do this. And one example is a parent who said, this experience will no doubt serve our son for a lifetime. And it's great that they're going to make a great decision about, for example, what they want to do after high school, but they will need to make decisions like this throughout their lives to manage their careers. For parents who want to do this work on their own, here's what we recommend. Follow the steps we showed you today. Go from challenges to companies to jobs, then to learning. If you do this right, you're going to see your team gain confidence the more they learn and the more opportunities they find to explore. For parents who are looking for help in the process, we offer a challenge program to guide students on the journey. And this is a program with a set of curriculum with videos, reading, and journaling that's supported with coaching sessions with a career coach. Typically takes 30 days to do, and it's delivered online. And the goal with this program is that you're going to have the opportunity to balance these big factors. You want a student who can find a balance between what they like, what the world needs, and what they're good at. I hope you like this way of looking at it, by the way. This is a popular screen capture from our presentations because if you look at this roadmap, you might be able to place yourself in your career journey of where you belong in that triangle. If you have neighbors or other family members, you can kind of see, well, where are people on this diagram. So students who can take advantage of career exploration, they tend to have these attributes. Number one, they're ready to do the work. And what that looks like is maybe 1 or 2 hours of work on their own during a week, for example. Number two, they're looking for exciting options, not a match for life. We don't want them to choose one thing forever because they will continue to change as people and the world around them will continue to evolve. Instead, you want them to gain the skills to develop exciting options and to build a plan to get there. Last, you want to show up to this program with openness and curiosity because you're going to discover more than you already know. The best way for a young person to find out if they want to do this is to book a call with a coach. In this way, the students can decide themselves and find out if they would enjoy working with a coach in this program. And to say thank you for attending, we wanted to share an offer today. The cost of the program is $2,100. And as a thank you, we're giving you access to a discount code for 30% off the cost of the program. We're making this available until June 10th. And if you want to learn more, you can book a call with us. And we're going to share a link in the chat for those who are interested. So, Kemi, if you can share that link in the chat for those who want. I want to keep sharing some insights along the way here for all the parents who joined. And I'm going to turn to Renee Michaud, who has played the role of career coach in multiple different ways, whether you were working with the university or working one-on-one. Can you tell us about the most valuable aspect of doing a program like the Challenge program, just based on your experience working with students?
Absolutely. Hi, everyone. Great to see you on the call. There's some familiar faces, Sabrina, Sebastian, lovely to see you. And to everyone else here, thank you for taking the time. I'm not sure if you're here on behalf of your young person, of students that you help, but we want to see them get unstuck. And so in terms of my experience, I have 10 years of experience in academic advising, working for a university, working with students in high school who are transitioning. And there's a lot of anxiety and fear and unknown. And in terms of what I've seen working one-on-one with students, they're walking away with more self-awareness, number one. So when they're saying things like, I don't know what my passions are, I don't know what I'm interested in, that's where we spend time to figure those out and we have those conversations. So that we go from this belief of, I don't know and I'll never know, to, well, let's start focusing on what it is that you do know and what are the little signs and indications of what those interests and passions could be. So number one is self-awareness. They have to start by going within to get to know themselves and some real introspection there. And then from there, they find that they have more self-confidence in choosing a direction. So it's not just handpicking a direction out of a hat, but really having that confidence that as they move forward, they'll be able to undertake whatever obstacles are they're faced with. So self-confidence in choosing a direction, not a direction for life, just the right next steps. And finally, there's often a sense of like renewed energy and inspiration. My own approach is very relational. And so when I show up, I like to meet students and transfer that inspiration and transfer that passion, so that they can feel a little bit more energized rather than unmotivated or lethargic or confused and lost. And I also just want to take a moment to talk about what I see in parents when I'm interacting with them throughout the process and towards the end. I do see also that there is a renewed connection between the parents and the children, because they don't want to take advice from their parents all the time. They're at a point where parents are also feeling a little powerless in terms of how they can get to their young person. So I can come in and be that bridge and be that neutral third party that can get them to open up. And I invite them as well to connect with their parents afterwards and share what they learned about themselves with their parents. So getting that renewed sense of connection and just getting that helping hand to come in and support the parents, because it's hard to see your kid struggle. So we don't want that. Thanks, JP.
Thank you, Renee. I love hearing you speak about this. I've seen you coach, and I think it's, your approach to coaching is fantastic. And, you talked about, you emphasized the role of the coach, which I think is great. I want to talk a little bit more about that. And then what I want to do next is I want to open up the floor to people's questions and comments. And the best way for you to do that, if you've got a question right now, just start putting them in the chat and we're going to deal with them one by one. But what you were talking about connects with something, one of the comments that we got about family input, right? And parental influence. I said that parents were the number one influence. They play the most important role. And that's a challenging role to play, because for those parents who have had successful careers, you might lean towards, this is how I became successful, therefore you should employ similar methods, similar programs, similar approaches, similar connections. But we do know that your teenager is different than who you are. That's why the neutral aspect is so helpful. Renee, I think you have a cool career path. However, your role is not to sell young people on your career path, right? It's not about pushing your values, your ideas. It's about helping their ideas emerge. And, there are challenges in parents doing that, but I have to tell you, I've seen some parents do it. It does require some discipline sometimes. Sometimes it's about the things that you don't say rather than just the things that you say. So that's what made me think about the comment. So I'd love to stop here and hear people's questions, comments, reactions. What are the things that you want to talk about today that we haven't brought up yet?
Maybe while people are putting things in the chat here, I saw some really interesting things up above when parents and educators are talking about the obstacles that the young people are facing. And some of those you might think aren't directly related to education and to career, but they are. Like, fear of making the wrong choice is a pattern. And so it's not happening in just one area of life, it's happening in all areas of life. And so the coaching helps to identify those patterns and to start breaking them slowly into healthier patterns. Less fear, less perfectionism. It's like these are big themes that are blocking our young people, and that are not just affecting education and career. So it's helpful to make those connections.
Thank you. Kemi from the SparkPath team and I have been setting up an opportunity in 2 weeks for young people who have been through the SparkPath experience to come back and share their stories 6 months, 1 year, sometimes like 2 or 3 years after they've gone through the program. So we're planning on shooting some small video snippets with them sharing, where they're at in their career journey and what they got from learning the challenge mindset and their experience. And for me, it's always great opportunity to hear about how students are doing, how they're progressing in their careers. And as you may have guessed from this webinar, my expectation is not that they're doing exactly the same thing that they said they would do 3 years ago. Rather, it's about how they're progressing in this cycle of learning about themselves and learning about the outside world. The student Anna that I told you about, she's continuing her studies. She's doing her PhD in material science and engineering. However, when she sends me her either talks that she's doing or articles that she's writing or research groups she's a part of, it's not about the algae anymore, right? It's something else, because as she continued to learn, she probably learned about new challenges she could work on. And that's actually a positive thing, when looking at change. I'm going to read a comment from Melissa here. I think the idea that people can stay in the same job for life needs to go. People are concerned about having to transition to different jobs as needed throughout their lives. That takes the risk of making the right choice away a little bit. It's a huge one, Melissa. When I was doing research with high school students early on, I did some qualitative research with surveys and students. And one of the phrases that came up a lot was rest of my life. Several students were saying, I don't want to make the wrong decision for the rest of my life. And that's truly how they feel. And I don't think it's their fault. They've been asked by well-meaning people, what do you want to be when you grow up? And what they heard was that, oh, when I grow up, I need to choose one thing that I want to be. So this is, a little bit of the pressure, the feeling of like, I need to make the right choice, choose one thing. Another question I got, other than the resume, do you have any insights into how youth can document and reflect upon their progress and development? I think the resume, you're right to say other than, because the resume would be the outward facing document that you create for one company that you want to work for. But youth can build their own portfolio of experiences. The easiest way to keep track of it that I've seen is called the STAR method. This is based on behavioral-based interviewing, and STAR acronym stands for situation, task, action, result. So imagine you've got a 15-year-old student that was the head of the yearbook committee at their school. They can write a STAR story explaining what was the situation for me to take the leadership job at my yearbook committee. What was the task at hand? What are the specific actions I took, and what are the results I achieved? This is how they're going to flesh out, the experiences and the skills that they use. And this exercise will help them think about, well, how do I communicate those skills to an employer? Even some scholarship applications require this type of information. So developing the discipline to collect that information, I think, is wonderful. And if you have a student who has learned the challenge mindset, that exercise is a little bit easier because they know what's the problem we're trying to solve as the yearbook committee, and they've defined that. They also have done research on the world of work. They've learned about people they aspire to become like. So they think about their experiences, their skills, and they can try to emulate that, a part of that at their level. So that's a useful connection that they can make. Okay, let's take a verbal question. Anybody want to unmute to ask a question verbally? Just to change things up a little bit. Anil, go ahead.
Hey, JP, Camille, Renee, thanks so much for this. This is awesome. Question for you around, like, I'm a huge fan of the idea of career coaching for a teen, for a high school student. I just think that's so valuable. My worry as a parent is that I, the parent, come in after a coaching engagement with you and the team and kind of ruin everything and kind of unwind everything and go back to the old things of, okay, what's your favorite course in high school then? And kind of move away from this challenge mindset. Is there any coaching for the parent in the program whereby you're saying, now parents, be careful not to do this, instead do this? I'm very confident in the teen getting value. I'm not so confident in the parent ruining things. What are your thoughts on that?
I'll give you mine, and then Renee, feel free to jump in. So, I mean, Anil, that's a self-aware question. And this is maybe something I could say at the beginning of this session. When I first started doing this work with families, I got one question all the time. What are you going to do when the parent says, this is what I want my daughter to do, coach her that way, And my response was that those are not the parents who call. We only see the parents that are very conscious and aware and thinking about their influence. So already that level of self-awareness is very useful, right? It makes me think about when my kids were born and they said, it's not necessarily the books that you read about parenting that will help you, but just the fact that you're the kind of person that reads books to help you in life that helps. So that's my first instinct when I think about your question. There's no way that answer is going to satisfy you, Anil. So let's do some practical answers. I'm not there at in the journey of my parenting, but there's an evolution where your kids become more and more independent, and this is one of those crucial times. These decisions around career and post-secondary. So it's not surprising that it's difficult to go from a changing role, a role where maybe you would give advice, to a role where you step back and ask questions. That would be my number one recommendation for parents, is that instead of being tempted to share advice about things that worked for you, great ideas you have for your students about their careers, great insights you have into who they are as people. It's less about saying those things, but it's more about asking questions, because young people will need to figure that out on their own. And of course, we can cheat by asking leading questions and leading them to where we want to go, but that's something that we got to resist. Renee, what do you think about that? Anything you'd like to add?
Sure, I can build off of that. Thanks for your question, Anil. Some thoughts in terms of, not undoing that work. I think I would agree with JP about the questions versus the guidance, for sure. That's what we do in terms of coaching. We ask a lot of questions. And I would say too, I like to focus on young people's strengths. So validating them and letting them know, or asking them, hey, how was your coaching session? What'd you take away? What didn't you like? Like giving them the space to share, what doesn't resonate with them and making that okay. Also, just validating their efforts. Hey, good for you. You're at coaching session number 2. I think that's great. I think what you're doing is great. And so those are some sort of practical pieces. And I think too, maybe around these really limiting statements, these beliefs that are hyperboles, right? I don't know what I want to do. I don't like school. I don't have a passion. Just focusing on what they do know, asking them, what is it that you do know? Like, it's great that you know what you don't like, validating that, and then making just this little space, this little intentional space for, what is it that you enjoyed this week? What was the highlight? So, playing with we call it the dialectic. So holding space for what's negative and what's challenging, and also getting them to reflect on their strengths, what's positive, and what's meaningful to them. So a couple of phrases or perspectives to practice with, something that you might already be doing.
Thank you, Renee, and thanks, Anil, for that question. Renee, your answer is connected with another question that we got in the chat about someone saying, I know what I don't like. And in this case, I don't want to be like you, mom and dad, you work too much. There are insights to be gained. Sometimes what I don't like feels like a dead end, but in coaching, you can draw a lot of insights from what someone doesn't like. That's actually a valid starting point that can, give you a lot of answers. So we look at that as real data to use instead of just a dead end, like I said.
Absolutely. That is definitely something they know. And we use that with the challenge approach. Is elimination is helpful. Great. And celebrate that. Hey, you know what you don't like. And being specific, what is it that you don't like about the work that we do? It's how much we work. Is there anything else that you don't like? What would you like instead? Right. So really creating this space to get them thinking a lot more critically, because often they don't have that nuanced thinking at their age. They just don't have the life experience either, and the work experience. So lots of questions, lots of open-ended questions.
We got another question about the challenge program. How many hours does it take? It is comprised of 3 coaching sessions that can be spread out, from between 1 month and 2 months, depending on the speed at which the student wants to move. And then they have homework between those sessions, 1 to 2 hours of homework between each session. That's typically what we find in terms of length. And we've helped students that are in high school, some are in college, some are in university, some are outside of school trying to figure out how to get back in. Those are the types of students that we've seen. Hey, I love this topic. Love the questions that we've gotten so far. I want to say a big thank you for everyone who decided to take some time to be here live with us, and also for everyone who's going to watch the recording. We know that just by showing up, it means you have your teenagers' best interests in mind, and that's a fantastic thing. You might share some things with them after this webinar that they've never heard before. I know, for example, that many of the teens that we help, they feel like the world doesn't need them. I see it differently. I think the world needs them. There are so many problems, challenges, and opportunities that they could work on. Companies that would love to hire, skilled young people. And now they can build a path to gain those skills and make a contribution. And when they get there, it's going to feel great because they're going to make a difference in the world. And that's a key driver for a lot of students. Okay, so once again, a huge thank you to everyone. We've shared some links in the call. If you want to copy paste that, those links disappear after the webinar, so feel free to save those in your browsers. I'll share my email address with you if you would like to follow up directly. I'd be happy to chat with anyone who has more questions. And we're planning on organizing events again in the future, so please do stay in touch with us. So huge thank you, everyone. Thanks for being here. I hope you have a wonderful evening.